So we want to begin the session in a good way with the land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge the traditional territories upon which we gather today. This land has a long and entangled history that carries the storied footprints of the Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe nations who have sought to walk gently on this land. They offered assistance to the first European travelers to this territory and shared their knowledge for survival. Takarondo has a treaty with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations, and this is part of the Dish with One Spoon agreement to share the land between the Anishnaabemowin and Haudenosaunee nations. We acknowledge the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples in moving towards reconciliation. We seek to polish the silver covenant chain and a restoration of the relationship between the original and settler peoples of this land, one based in honor and deep respect. And this land acknowledgement is found on our center's website, which is listed below as part of the Deepening Knowledge Project.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jocelyn. So with this same spirit, I'm very pleased to present our speaker for today, Loretta Assinewai. Loretta is originally from Wiikwemkoong Unceded Territory and resides in Sudbury, where she's actively involved with raising her grandchildren. Loretta is a fluent speaker of Anishnaabemowin, and she is presently employed with the Chiefs of Ontario office in the education sector as the Language and Culture Strategist. She's also a PhD candidate part-time. So Loretta, thank you so much for being here today, for joining us and sharing your knowledge and your work. So I will pass it over to you.
Chimigwet, Lois and Jocelyn. It's a pleasure, Miigwech, for inviting me here today, and I'm very happy to be able to come and share with knowledge and lived experience I've been able to accumulate over my 64 years on this in this physical world. And like you mentioned, I am a very active grandmother in my grandchildren's upbringing, particularly with the culture and the language transmission. And although they aren't fluent yet, my little one, the youngest one, 5, is beginning to really impress me with her language, her Anishnaabemowin. So, you know, it really brings to light the importance of immersion, language immersion, you know, to strengthen and maintain and stabilize our languages. So, having said that, I'll just share my my slide deck. So this slide deck, you'll see it is in Anishnaabemowin, and although I'm a a very firm believer and promoter of immersion, right from when the baby's in the mother's womb, you speak to that child that's growing in your room. And they say that the spirit enters the child, the unborn child, when you first feel the kick of that little one in your womb. And so, it's important to begin, if you're fluent or if you're a second language learner, to start to speak to that to your child in your womb, and as soon as they're born, and by the time they're 5 years old, they'll be fluent, they'll be first language speakers. So that's is an area that is my passion, and it is work that I want to pursue in terms of my research. But today I'm going to kind of be all over the place. I know what my sister and I do is we work with groups, and the medicine wheel and its teachings are always included in what we do, whether it's to talk about the language and the culture and how it goes hand in hand, and even from a strategic sense, if you're looking at strategizing language policy and language planning, we always incorporate the medicine wheel, its teachings, and the uh, the Sweetgrass Road. And the Sweetgrass Road is essentially, um, following the good teachings on that Sweetgrass Road, um, with the seven grandfathers and how they're intertwined to, to make you know a solid braid that is strong. A single grass of sweet grass, a single blade of sweetgrass is much stronger when you braid. And so, it's kind of informally, even without being cognizant that we incorporate those teachings in our lives, and they were always modeled to us by our grandparents, our parents, our grandparents, and you know other Getsipitsijik who are elders in our community, and of identity. And I was given my Anishnaabemowin-Ojibwe, or my spirit name, by my grandfather, Debitba. Debit Ajidamispa. Acknowledge um, in Anishnaabemowin. So if you just follow with me, sometimes reading through phonics phonetically helps, but I don't have any what do you call those now? Not asterisks, but the hyphens in between the words to help break up the word phonetically. But Ani Bojo, Loretta Fox Assinewai Indishnikas, Wiikwemkoong Unceded Wabjesh Ndodem, Jikwes Noswin Nimishomseba, Debitba, Ngiminik Jeboa, Eje Geno Wamdamang, Mandasa Ejwebsit Anin Bimaadiziwin. Nochgego Eja Anmenchgewad Wiikwemkoong Nibna Gogego Shashe Chipitsichik Minwa Bimaadiziwin Neta Nishnabemchik Jichgeok we gweje nadmundwa gunda Bimaadiziwin we kche shkeuziwat we nojmuat minwa we nandweo diswat. So that is my introduction, where my name, where I'm from, Wiikwemkoong, and Martin is my clan. Jikwes is the name my grandfather, my late grandfather David, gave me before I was born. So that's what I carry in his honor. And I wasn't given that name until I was told of that. Although I was called that, I wasn't told where it came from until I was probably like 12, 13, when you start to, get into the your youth and your wandering stage of life. So that is what but it fit my characteristic. It fit my you know um my skills. I was cooking at 9 years old, believe it or not, and washing in an old ringer washer, at that time too, because I come from a family of 10 and I was the oldest girl. So I had to help my mother. So I learned those skills at a young age, along with the safety that comes with it. So, you got to be um, be taught safety as well as the skills. And my sister and I, my younger sister and I, that's Shime. Shime is younger sister. So what we try and do on an individual basis, but also, working with youth, is we try and uh, try and share those old stories with them, and the language and the different teachings that we walk with to help them, in their lives if they're struggling. And there's many things that our elders have done, our ancestors that have done to help our generation. In terms of my grandparents, what they did for me, my parents, what they did for me, in terms of knowledge about our culture and our language. So those were passed down orally. It wasn't one day where my grandfather sat me down and said, "I'm going to teach you about the seven grandfathers today." No, they were modeled. They were a way of life. They were part of our worldview. And on the medicine wheel, you're born in the eastern direction. And then as you go south around, to all the other directions, that's your the four stages of life, or the four life cycles, from um, child to youth to adults, and then in the north, the older, the elders. So we try and incorporate that, and I'm also, a caregiver of someone who is, who struggles with addictions, and a lot of the time our culture and our language and our ceremony and our traditional practices come into play to help those family members. And they're my sister's children, my children. They've experienced difficult times because of our trauma as parents, and so that was part of my healing. And so we always help our children, empower them, with res you know helping them light that resiliency within them. And it's encouragement, it's support. I had to learn the fine line between enabling and, you know um, really setting down boundaries. So I'm pleased to say that, I have a couple of daughters who are under recovery right now, and celebrating, one celebrating a year of sobriety from a very, very difficult place where it was, life or death for her. So I'm very pleased to share that, and I'm very, very proud of her. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next slide. So we want to help our communities, our First Nation communities, grow and strengthen in our language and our way of life. And that's our culture, our worldview. And it's very difficult at times, even with my grandchildren, because technology had such an impact on our young people, our young generation. And what we believe in is, we we have to be open to all ways of transmitting the language and the culture. And I said at the beginning that I do believe in immersion. I've seen it. I'm practicing it with my youngest right now. It works. But I think also, because we're losing language speakers quickly, we need to learn to write it, to record it, to use technology to our benefit of hanging on to our teachings and our language. And however that may be, there's so much going on um, in different First Nation communities with respect to language immersion, online, on the land, in 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 homes that replicate our grandparents' homes. So, wewene we should be gang, we not ma gang, or there were son and jabaying. So here, this sentence is we need to the shabiga means to write, and our ancestors did write stories, petroglyphs, um, birch bark scrolls. They recorded the history in those ways, and it helped us. It helped us understand and really um, have those teachings of creation, passed on that way. And Odewe Sun is our communities where we come from. Oshme we Mino Bimaadiziwin Anishnaabemowin meanwhile we Wiikwemkoong Unceded. So it's to really support the growth of Anishnaabemowin. And I'm talking Anishnaabemowin because that's my language, and my dialect is Wiikwemkoong on Ndomnising, Manitoulin Island. And to have our culture stay strong. And so on an individual basis, but also as a partnership between my sister and I, this is what we strive to do in our community. And although right now we live in Sudbury, we do have a Native community within Sudbury, and many of which are from my area as well as the communities along the North Shore and the 69 corridor. So I won't read the Anishnaabemowin, but maybe about 6 years ago, around Christmas time, and we used to always go to our parents' home in Kaboni, which is a satellite community of the main village. Wiikwemkoong. Kaboni is here. We have Rabbit Island, South Bay, Buzzwa. Those were satellite communities, and that they're called Odewe, the smaller communities. Odenang would be the village, and then these satellite communities were Odewe. And so anyway, we were there cleaning. We always cleaned up my parents' home for Christmas because that's where everybody gathered. Just 10 of us. I've since lost 3 brothers. But we all gathered there for Christmas with our children. I only had three daughters, and so we would get the house ready, and we would recall our childhood, because there were 5 boys and 5 girls, and we didn't have bedrooms, right? We had a loft upstairs, and girls stayed on this side, the boys stayed on this side. And we were just sitting around and sharing life experiences growing up, and comparing the parenting of our parents and the parenting of ourselves, and then looking at the parenting of our children. So we had our concerns, right? We had our concerns, and how are we going to at least make this better? What can we do to make this better? Because as I mentioned, I'm quite involved with my grandchildren. I've even I'm fostering three grandkids right now, whilst their parents get stronger and more stable. Mind you, they come and help all the time, with the kids and have sleepovers, but to have them have their children may be a little bit too overwhelming at this point. So it's a gradual process, right? And so my younger sister, Shime Hazel, so that's younger sister, she says, Gikida means she said, Mama, Gi Gi kedungwading. Abdik mabakwesnes, squeezes, Oshens, and Oshen is grandchild. We ken the Mowat, we Anishnaabemowin, um, Gaywinwa. So they have to learn their language, our parents told her. You know, they have to learn the language, and you have to do what you can to teach the language to the children. Um, and our bapaba, our father, our late father, yikida, gegwa, shkatsike, oh no, sorry, gewan shkaje ganuna ke, kadabanoji mak. Don't speak roughly to your children. Don't yell at them. You know, um, really communicate in a good way. So, didn't always happen when I was a parent, but certainly as a grandparent, I'm doing that now. And so we uh, we were, sharing and reminiscing, and that was a big lesson for us there. When we look at our childhood, and we recall the chores we had as children. When deming gashanadamaging and dying. So when we think about our past as children, growing up in a community, we were kind of isolated. We only had one car, and it wasn't always a dependable car. And we played outside. We played in the bush. My brothers built tree houses in the bush, and the land was our playground. And some of this is when we're teaching the youth how to say these chores in Anishnaabemowin. Gizibig nagang minwagwa weng is when we wash and we hang the clothes out. So that was part of our chores. We would haul water, bish adowing wasa, from a long distance. And we would have the youth visualize, these chores, and when my strategy when teaching the language and the culture is to visualize, you know I would say it in the English context, and then repeat the Ojibwe description of that scene they're visualizing of washing and hanging out the clothes. So we would go through this, and then we would ask them, what else do you remember, you know, um, about helping in the home? And, when I think of my grandkids, well, this is what they do, right? This is the basic of the chores. Wegnesh nungwa kadabanojim nanik esh shichgewat we nadmagewat gewinwa endying. So what chores do our children do today to help at home? So these are some of the ones that they say. So not like the big list we'd seen earlier, right? This is pretty much probably not even a list that my grandchildren finish. I have to go in there and help them finish. But it's a big difference from what we were able to do as young people in our communities to help our parents. Sometimes washing dishes, have to go back and wash some of them again. Now, so we do have, our social challenges and family hardships, and but we always have to acknowledge the people who are successful, the people who are trying. You want to, because when you look at that medicine wheel and you're in the center, and the four directions have different teachings, not only the stages of life, but the strengths, the gifts, in each of those four directions. And we have to um, talk about those gifts with the youth. And um, it's something that needs to always be brought to their attention. Well, this is what I see in you as a gift, as a strength. And so we have to acknowledge that. And in my generation, we encourage the youth to speak, and not to be shy, like our what happened with the survivors of the residential school and the Indian day school. I am a survivor of the Indian day school. And where our language wasn't tolerated in school. So we have to always encourage that. And no matter how hard it is, um, you just keep at it. And I really believe that the language is in our blood, our bloodline, and we just have to wake it up. And that's what's happening with Lily, my 5-year-old grandchild. I say Lily, and I call her Lily Beans. Lily Beans. And she says, "What, Grandma?" I looked at her, I said, "Lily Beans." Then she says, "Wenesh no kamis." Then she says, she translates that "what, Grandma" to "Wenesh no kamis." And then our conversation starts. So she's picking up the language very, very quickly. And sometimes I speak to her, give her instructions, and she knows what I'm telling her to do, asking her to do. But there are hardships everywhere, not only in my community, but many communities, even urban communities. But the hardship there is those that are not in the communities, they need more um, accessibility to be able to hear and converse in the language with others. So hence, all the language activities on Zoom, and it's good. I really, really believe we're really utilizing technology in a good way for our language. And then, we have these other issues, right? And for when we look at that feather, we have all the positive things on one side and then the opposites on the other. So, we do have our struggles. And I have the language here beside each of those issues that um, First Nations people have been struggling with. And there's also water, having quality water to drink, um, are everyday issues that they have to struggle with. And I went to a data sovereignty conference, and they always, one of the things that they um, that was shared was, they're always trying to measure the deficits of First Nations people. Always the deficits. So we can look at this as the deficits of our community. But we also have really good things happening in our community, good positive events and support and services to combat these Snuggazuwin. And so, just to give you an example, drugs and alcohol, Jimshkike minwa mnikwewin. So that's nje means bad, shkike medicine, and is meanwa mnikwewin, that drink, that alcohol. Because alcohol is a spirit, and it has to be respected. Otherwise, it's going to do you harm. So we were looking at our communities, and you might have heard that we're trying to move away from reserves, lands reserved for First Nations people, because that was just, little piece of land of our bigger traditional territories, right? And shkunjagan is a word that would, you know, de define that in the true sense of what the government was giving us leftover land, probably land that we couldn't even farm on. So we call them now Odenong or Odewesan. And so we have these communities, and we're beginning to work more with collaborate with each other rather than just focusing, because my community has strength in the language. We have still a lot of language speakers, and they're teaching the children who are becoming fluent. So there are communities that have no more language speakers, right? So we some of our speakers will go to that community and help them reclaim and revitalize their languages. Now, when we look at our Odewes and our communities, they're kind of like a blessing in disguise now, I guess. So, we can, in my community, we still have vast forests, clean water. You're able to hunt still, and they're protected from external forces coming in. But that's even getting more difficult now because of the resources in those First Nation communities that they want to extract, right? And so we have to really ensure that work is done, to honor the treaties. And that's one of my roles as a teacher, as well as to talk about treaties, to educate about the treaties, as many as other elders do as well. Okay, so I just wanted to quote some Anishinaabe, which is Kchikendosjik. They're elders with knowledge, great knowledge. And I just wanted to quote them because I know Elder Hilda Najwan Bashi has made her way back home to the spirit world. And yeah, she often would share that our young people are having a difficult time learning the language because our people are still healing. So true. You need to grieve the loss of your language as well and heal from that. And that's what the medicine wheel teachings help you do. I used to have a medicine wheel in my office where I was a counselor, and that was a tool for me. That was a counseling tool, the medicine wheel. And we'd have a feather, an eagle feather, in that office as well. And this is my Nushe, Doris Roy Clausen. She's an elder in my community, and she taught us that our language is a kind and gentle one. For example, when we ask rather than command. So when we say, "Bekwe natamoshin," help me. Bekwe natamoshin, like, and it's also incorporating, if you have time, can you come and give me a hand here? Rather than hearing, something more demanding and ordering. Taganadmoshin, will you help me here? So, she we need to go back to that kind and gentle way of speaking in our language. You know, some of these words, our language evolves, right? As time evolves, our language evolves. So we come up with words in Anishnaabemowin, you know, to reflect something that didn't have a kidwin before. So taganadmoshin, it's kind of like a more demanding. Somebody asked me, taganadmoshin. I would say, wow. What? You want me to help you? Um, And then this other quote from Richard Littlebear, who's from the States, an elder from the States. By teaching isolated words, we're creating whole tribes, is what he's referring to, or we would say nations, that will speak only in numbers, colors, body parts, with nothing linking them. And that's what's happening in our schools, especially in our urban public schools or Catholic school boards where our children are all, because a lot of our Anishinaabe people reside in urban centers, either for employment or they were born and raised in that city of Toronto and continued to live there, but their children go to those school boards. So, you know, they're being taught these single words like the colors, like the numbers, like the days of the week. It's not conversational, it's not full immersion. And that's you know, happened to my granddaughter, Micaiah. She learns the language here at home with me and she goes to school and she couldn't believe, you know, having a teacher who was in Anishinaabe teaching her Anishinaabe language. And she was just mind boggled. And so I had to, you know, encourage her. Well, you share what you learn at home, you know, as part of your classroom sharing, because this is something we're working on. And this is something we're working on at the provincial level with languages and culture. So we need to properly recognize and you know, provide that equity to our language teachers, even if they don't have that, you know, Bachelor of Education, but they're fluent, right? So anyway, we're working on ways of credentialing them to meet OCT. Um, and then this is just some quotes from Chief Dan George, who I love to read all the time. And then Art Solomon was an elder in our area who has also, well, both have made their spirit journeys. So young people are the pioneers of new ways. Since they face too many temptations, it will not be easy to know what is best. So true. So true today. Um, the Indian way, in this work, we should begin and maintain what we call the Indian way, so that in correcting or teaching or being corrected, we will always maintain an attitude of respect for each other, or what I call a gentle way. And then another elder talking about gentle. And, you know, Art Solomon was, you know, one of our leading elders in this Niswakmuk area back in the 80s, 70s and 60s, 70s, and 80s, I guess. Worked very much with the inmates, the native inmate population. Okay, so there is a need, you know, to empower our parents to be there for our children, what nature intended. And you know, there's these teachings that are they're so helpful. They're so helpful in one's healing, even if someone who hasn't really fully embraced their language or their culture, something clicks with them eventually. Um, and you know, the power of addictions. And this is, I don't know if you have heard of, probably of Dr. Gabor Mante, you know, who is a medical physician, but he has a lot of done a lot of work with respect to the Anishinaabe people, First Nations people, Indigenous people. Okay. So anyway, this is to give you an idea, like land-based teaching is also so important. I used to go for walks with my grandkids in the bush, and we name the things we saw in the bush in the language. And even in the city where I'm living, Sudbury, we'd go for a walk, and we'd say, there's a red car. Squadabad, ne, mana. Do you see it? So, immersing them in the language that way as we're walking they make that connection much more easier when they see it, which is sometimes, when I say visualize it, but when they're actually out there on the land, outside learning the language. So we have these, these different camps, um, to immerse the children in the language and, having that language also within helping groups or circles, sharing circles, to help and support one another. We have this elders lodge in our community where you can go, and talk with the elders, over tea or cookies or scone soup, and there's more of those. I think we have 3 in our community right now. And you go, they let you know, okay, we're gonna have soup and bannock at this time. Come and sit at the kitchen table and we'll talk in the Anishnaabemowin. That's beautiful. So these are just some of the ways, some of the efforts today to revive and stabilize our languages. So we talked about what else could we possibly do? And when we look in that north direction, that the mental um, part of our being sits, and included in there is technology and the um, the white race and the movement. They're the ones with the movement that continue to I guess in terms of industrialization and the introduction of technology. But what else can we do? And sometimes we just have to slow down, right? Slow down and really think about what are our purposes in life and where we can help and support. So, we want to incorporate the language, and we've tried to, we're working at that provincial level to update the Ontario Native Languages curriculum, include, you know, First Nations culture in the curriculum. We can do it through life skills employment programs. There was one called Anishinaabe Identity, Mind, and Spirit, and it was for youth who were struggling with whatever aspect in their lives they were struggling with, but they incorporated. I think there was like 30 cultural teachings at one point, and a lot of land-based activities and a lot of ceremony, but also industry certified skills or certifications, that they can add to their resume to make them more employable. And I was just so overwhelmed with the growth that I saw in the participants in that program. From a young lady who just jumped out of the bed, came because she had to be here as part of her, attendance, and by the midway through the program, oh my God, she took time to get ready and groom herself in the morning, and she was beautiful. And so you see, over time, what that does to help our people who are struggling. And that's an area that I want to be able to pursue is, could our language and culture, be a social determinant of health? Invest in our language and our culture now, so that you don't have to invest, and they'll be healthy and holistically well and balanced young people, instead of what's happening or has happened too long. It's incarceration, drug and alcohol addictions, and so that's something I'm dabbling in. I know it works, language and culture in one's healing and recovery. It's one of the stronger factors in you making it out, surviving whatever it is that you survived in terms of trauma, and when you lost your way. It it plays a big role. Um, so, we kind of brainstorm again, dreaming up what we can do. What do we need to achieve healing and good health with everything? And that's you have to hear that from the community. You have to hear it from every um, age population in the community. What do they think we need to achieve healing and good health? Um, so Wiikwemkoong is a strategy, and in every community, First Nation community, has their own strategy for healing and wellness, perhaps even for their language and culture, their own policies and strategies to get to where they want to be. So kind of we need to commit to language acquisition and retention by consistently hearing the language at home. And, even if we bring in a support worker, how they have these personal support workers that come in and help individuals, with their personal care. We need to have personal language support workers go in there, support that family with the language. Go in at the breakfast time and just immerse the family and children in the language about the routine, giving thanks for the day, starting off with a prayer, assigning everyone duties in the kitchen to get breakfast ready, all in the language, and then maybe the next day you go back to that same family and work with them on the afternoon, immersing them in language about the afternoon. Not quick, it's lunchtime. So we need to, be able to do that. And what do we need? We need resources, right? We need resources. Commit to family and community support to establish routine at home that supports a healthy, active living for all members. And I'm guilty of that. I just bought an elliptical today because my sugars have been high in the morning. I thought, oh, I gotta get back on it. I made varsity basketball in my college years. I was an avid baseball player. Um, so we need to and we need to role model that, right? Got to get my kids. So I have a couple of grandkids that go for walks with me, but I have this one granddaughter who, oh, it's just like pulling teeth to get get her motivated to go outside in the evening, and especially in the summertime. Um, so we need that active, healthy living, and try and abstain from media. I shut down the internet at 10 o'clock. That's it. So we sit around, and get ready for bed, and uh, try to get them to make their lunches, but I have to finish that off before after they're gone to bed. So yeah, abstaining from media and access to the internet. That has to be a really family commitment to do that. So this is just we talk about funding, because we also assist with proposal writing, and this is the medicine wheel. you know, we in the East is observation, and oh, got the wrong mouse here. You know, it's emotional, represents healing and belonging. And so we can get into, you know, each one of these. Yes, you're working with a group or with that one individual, you know, how are you feeling? Well, let's say, you know, I'm kind of mentally overwhelmed lately, or, you know, I'm physically feeling blah, I have no motivation. So you go to that part in that medicine wheel and you talk about some of the teachings there that you as a helper can share with them, you know, and at the end, always evaluating your work, right? There always is, because there's always room for improvement. And what worked? What do we need to change next time round? Or what do we need to change now in our lives? So anyway, we went on to create job descriptions for these home language support workers. So that's something that we're working on. And of course, I need to, and even we identified a team that could do that, you know, and what resources we would need to be able to run a program like that, having language support workers going into the home and helping, particularly young parents that are involved with child welfare services. They're the ones that need so much help, um, so much advocacy. And of course, we need partnerships within the community, right? We need to work collaboratively with other agencies. And, you know, there's so many services within one community. I think everyone needs to be not working in silos, but more in partnership for that good of that individual or that good of that family and the good of that community. And of course, we need the support of our chief and council. So, and our elders, we need guidance and direction from them. You know, they could, you know, go into homes and share stories and experiences about traditional parenting. And then, of course, we need our language speakers who are, you know, leaving this world. We need to really, really, it's an urgent, it's something that keeps me up at night sometimes when I'm thinking, although in our community we're doing good things with the language, but other communities, it's yeah, they're down to no speakers. Now, so Chimigwech Gibizindoyik, thank you for listening to me. It's a lot to put into an hour, but if there are any questions, I'll try and answer the questions. Miigwech. I'll stop sharing now.
Miigwech, Loretta, thank you so much. If anyone has a question, feel free to raise hand or type questions in chat or comments. Thank you so much, Loretta, for sharing all of your knowledge. Yeah, incredible.
Miigwech.
I think, Nicole, do you have a question?
Hey, thank you. Yes. Thank you so much, Loretta. That was so insightful. I was wondering, I'm very much interested in teacher education, particularly language teacher education. And I'm very interested in, I think your project is fascinating in terms of that kind of like what we've seen maybe like in the health kind of science space, right? Where you assign like a healthcare worker to, I think it's such a brilliant idea to bring language into the home. I wonder if you may be able to speak a bit more. You showed us very quickly a list of language kind of responsibilities that the language worker would have in the home. I wonder if we might be able to see that again, and maybe you could speak a little bit more in terms of, like, from a preparation perspective, what does then that mean to help prepare these language support workers in terms of their training or their educational kind of, and how maybe we may be able to assist or support from a teacher education perspective.
Yeah. Do you see it?
Not
Is
yet,
this,
no.
is this the one you're referring to? Oh, I gotta share it then. Sorry. Let me just.
Yes, that's the one. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know how to put it in slide view, but can you read it?
We can. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank
Okay.
you so much. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So, as I guess fluent speakers ourselves, and we've worked in education for many years. Like I've also taught in the elementary school, in university and college, language, but also Aboriginal Studies 101 kind of thing. And my sister currently works with a school board here in Sudbury as an Indigenous lead, and she's doing great work in terms of the truth and reconciliation calls to action, and incorporating, infusing our culture and our language into the system of the school boards for the benefit of all students, right? So we would ideally like to provide these Anishnaabemowin home support workers with how to write Anishnaabemowin. I think when you have a visual and you have the writing of it, and you can sound, because we use the double vowel system that Fierro developed to write the language out. So it really, because I was fluent, and then I taught university, and of course I had manuals that the doctor um, Marianne Corbier Nakwigijik developed. And so it took a while for me to wrap my head around the writing system, prefixes, suffixes, pejoratives, locatives, because we just learned orally, right? We didn't have definitions for all this writing structure, but it can be done, and people, it doesn't have to be hard, but you can learn to write Anishnaabemowin, and I think that would be part of the support workers' ongoing training. Traditional parenting, how Kognausuwin, provide that training as well for these workers. Cultural sensitivity, because you don't want to overwhelm a family with, smudging. Pretty much everybody does smudging, right? But in some communities, other religions are more practice rather than cultural, traditional practices. So you have to be careful there, you know. And because not everyone goes to ceremony. Maybe they do once a year. Not everyone can attend cultural teachings as part of their healing and wellness. So you want to be able to kind of share a little bit about that when you're in the home, right? And when you have their attention. And it's up to them. You share what you want, and they can take it or leave it, and that has to be something that's to be honored, I think. Provide awareness and training of all the support services in the community. It's because, if and this is when we're looking at, we're helping young parents who are involved with child welfare services, is looking at, sharing, or even saying, you know what, I can bring you over there where they can help you with this, so knowledge of the services in the community, and then um, provide that training for roles and responsibilities for each season, and you can share that in the language, like in the spring, you're going to get ready to get to plant, and you know um I asked my grandkids, to come and help me plant some flowers. Well, what do you want me to do? So it's, although we my parents had a garden, we were always working the garden. We planted, we weeded the garden, we harvested. So I was lucky to get that knowledge. I was lucky to experience that. So, we need to ensure that these language support workers are also um, well versed in these seasonal uh, activities. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Miigwech.
Uh-huh.
You bet, Loretta. I
Okay.
am cognizant of time, so we've
Mhm,
6:05. We do have some more questions.
mhm.
Maybe I'll check in with you, Loretta, to see how you're
Yep.
doing.
I'm
You're
good. I'm
you're
good.
good? Okay, perfect, wonderful. So we do have a question from Nancy, who is our next guest speaker in the series. So welcome, Nancy. She's asking if you I wonder how the medicine wheel may be used by non-Indigenous peoples to support growth processes. We're in an urgent need for healing at all levels and ages.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, let me just show you. Hang on.
Good to see you, Nancy. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you.
I've just shared in the chat for those who might not have had a chance to register for Nancy's upcoming talk. The Eventbrite link is there if you would like to join in November with us.
I, I stopped sharing, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so this is the medicine wheel that I use, the tool. So, if you're willing to make one of these and really sit with someone who can share with you the basic teachings of the medicine wheel, and um, there's also written resources on the medicine wheel teachings, and so you would have to take the time to study it, right? And study and read upon those teachings, and even consult with someone who can share a little bit more with you. And I've always used the medicine wheel to reflect on my experiences, my history, my healing. And if you're able to do that, that also creates a certain level of trust, and then you begin to build on the rapport you have with that individual that you're working with. So that would be you need to be ready. You need to be really ready. I hope that's answered your question, Nancy.
Thank you, Loretta. I just wanted to thank you for the reminders that you bring to us in terms of the use of the words, that caring, loving word. And of course, all the different elements that you raised in terms of education and parenting and all the inner work that we are invited to do. So I've been walking on this path, and I've got some tools that we've been exchanging with some communities down here in Colombia. I am in Colombia, in Latin America.
Yes.
And then, so we've been supporting the Truth Commission with some, ancestral knowledges in terms of building and healing this process. So thank you so much for the recommendations. I will definitely continue to study more about the 4 directions and what they represent to all of us. And just wanted to thank you in voice for your presence and the language that you have brought to us, because as you said, like, language is in us and is part of our DNA. And that's a beautiful reminder of the importance of preserving those languages, which is something unfortunate for us down here in Colombia, where we have lost so many, but still we've got 64 indigenous languages being spoken. So thank you so much for the inspiration and the love and your presence here.
No, miigwech, Nancy.
Well, thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Loretta. We do have one last question that I see in the chat. It's from Fiona. So such an inspiring presentation, miigwech. She says, I'm fascinated by the visualization process of learning language. Could you share a bit more about that? And for context, she's a primary teacher in a community in the north where they're taking language lessons from an elder.
Okay. Well, I often did visualization with my elementary school students. And, when one word describes a lot. So, beam jigging is when we're riding our bicycle. So I said, in your mind, picture yourself riding your bicycle and how you're, moving those pedals. And that's what beam jigging means. It your feet are making those wheels turn. It's not necessarily biking, but it's your feet using the pedals to make those wheels turn. Beam jigging. So when they visualize it, and then we'll add a little tune to it, So sometimes when you sing the language, it's easier. I translated a song by you ever hear the song? I can't remember the name of the band, but it was like, hey, brother, there's an endless road to rediscover. Hey, sister. So I translated that all, and I had my Anishnaabemowin class sing it um, on the hand drum. And that's how we learned that song. And it was so my heart just melted when I heard them, um, because even the toughest words they were able to sing. So one of the toughest ones, and I can remember, I can still picture this young fella. He's saying, "Kawinge gutes no geamba," and when you say that, "Kawinge go geamba," so he sang it, and it sounded so amazing. I said, oh my God. So singing the language also is good. And then you get them to, and it gives them a chance to close their eyes and in the class, and just, and I then I describe something in English, that you're laying on a rock, you're looking up the blue sky, and then you see an eagle circling. So then I say that in the Anishinaabe. So I think those are some of the helpful ways that I saw my Anishnaabemowin students who weren't fluent uh, get the language down pat in terms of pronunciation and understanding what it meant.
Miigwech, Loretta. I see someone in the chat says, hey brother, by Avicii.
Okay, yeah, Avicii, yeah.
And I do see just one comment from Umar talking about when in mainstream contexts of schooling and the need for being mindful of appropriation and appreciation, and how as educators, we acknowledge and respect and do our good way to embody Indigenous knowledges and recognize possible dangers of our teachings being colonized. So thank you for sharing your life. Not sure if you wanted to speak to that a little bit, Loretta. Or...
Okay. Okay. So context we should be on purpose. Yeah.
A bit more of a
Yeah. You know, it's when you speak from the heart. When you speak from the heart, it's the truth. And you know, no matter how, when, where, why you have embraced your culture, your teachings, your language, you know, it always comes from the heart. So when you know, connect the heart to hear the mental, I think that just creates more opportunity to display those seven grandfathers, you know, of you know, that we kind of want to try and live by, right? No matter in what context we're talking about, whether we're raising children, whether we're taking care of elders, but those seven grandfathers are important to model.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Loretta, and thank you, everyone. So you've gifted us so much of your time, Loretta. This has been wonderful, so much learning, and I'm looking forward to having the recording. So I'll throw it over to Jocelyn to close us off, and Chini Gotchigat.